Hi, everybody. I am Brian Clapp, Director of Content for workinsports.com. And this is Facebook Live. This is not the Work in Sports podcast, which is what I'm used to saying all the time. This is Facebook Live. What I've noticed is that there's never a bunch of viewers at the very beginning when I start. But you'll come. I promise. I just keep going until you all show up. You're a late arriving crowd. I can handle that. So, who am I? I am speaking to no one right now, but that's okay. I am Brian Clapp. As I mentioned, I am the Director of Content for Work in Sports. And why should you care what I have to say? Why should you care? Why should you be here? Well, I've worked in the sports industry for 20 years. And if you're one of the people that's aspiring to work in the industry, I have a lot of information to share. I have a lot of knowledge that I think I've gained over my 20 years in the industry, and I'm excited to share it with all of you. That's the whole purpose of doing this. I've worked most predominantly in the sports media. I worked at CNN Sports Illustrated. I worked at Fox Sports Northwest, and I've been with the Work in Sports team for a couple of years now, and 5 years now, 6 years now. And, it allows me to connect with all of you. It allows me to share my knowledge back and give a little bit. I learned early on, actually probably 15 years into my career, I realized when I started doing speeches in colleges or talking to small groups that I really enjoyed that ability to help and give somebody knowledge that they didn't otherwise have. So that's why I'm here. That's why I want to help all of you. And, workinsports.com, like I mentioned, I've been there for about 5 years now, and the site's been around for 20 years. Isn't that incredible? In this era of .coms that come and go and, that flame out with ideas that don't ever take hold, Work in Sports has existed since 1999, right around near the end of 1999, 2000. And we've been providing efficient access to the sports industry jobs for a really long time. It's funny. People always ask me, why join Work in Sports? Why join our membership? And one of the stories I like to tell is that I actually tried one time, true story. I tried to replicate what we do on a, hey, Glynn from Texas. I tried to literally replicate what we do on an everyday, every hour basis, personally, just myself. And hey, Damien, I tried to literally do it myself. And I set up bookmarks on tons of pages for their job pages. So I tried to set up RSS feeds. I tried to, Gary, how are you? My guy from Dallas. I tried to set up RSS feeds. I tried to set up Google Alerts. I tried to really replicate a system very similar to what we provide on a daily basis. And it was near impossible. Like, it literally took me 30 hours a week of managing that process, of going to different sites, of setting up bookmarks, of setting up different RSS feeds and Google Alerts. I couldn't replicate it. It was just took too much time. I couldn't do it. So if you look at us in that form and say Work in Sports is an efficiency tool, that makes a lot of sense. You can go to our site and in like no time get full access to every job out there in the sports industry, every available opportunity, different search by location, search by keywords, find it all right there from 8,000 different employers. So I try to explain it to people that way and say, we're an efficiency tool in a lot of ways. Now, there are other features. You can post your resume. We have recruiters that come in and look. We have all different kind of things that we do to try to help you get your sports job. I mean, look at what I'm doing right now. But one of the main things I like to say to people is that it saves you so much time. So I think that's an important thing to remember. And if you are a student, boom, incredible deal we have going on for infinity. Well, until my boss tells me we're not doing it anymore. Go to workinsports.com/students, sign up using your .edu email address, and you get a 6-month membership for just $30. So $5 a month. Pretty cool deal. Okay. Many of you have probably heard me on the Work in Sports podcast. That's the podcast that I host. If you haven't, you should. You should listen in there because it's another place where I'm trying to share information. The difference there is that not only do I do sessions kind of like this, but it's not as interactive. I answer questions from fans. But I also have a Wednesday podcast that's on Mondays where I do the Q&A sessions. I also have a Wednesday podcast where I interview guests, expert guests from around the sports industry. And what's really cool about that is that I get really good guests. I'm gonna just looking at my notes over here because I want to tell you a couple of the guests that I have coming up in January. Kurt Svoboda, who is the Associate Athletic Director for University of Michigan. Maylin Vu, who is the Cleveland Indians Assistant Director of Talent Acquisition. I did this interview just a couple days ago. She is incredible. All of these are incredible, but she just like knocked my socks off. Tiara Brown, Charlotte Hornets Manager of Corporate Social Responsibility. Melanie Newman, who's a broadcaster with the Frisco Rough Riders. She is also one of just 5 women in professional baseball calling play-by-play. Really cool. Lee DeLeon, the Associate Athletic Director at Purdue, just did that interview a couple days ago. Awesome. Really great stuff. So we have all this content where I'm trying to bring in other experts from the industry. It's not just me. It's not just what I have to say. Other industry experts, so they can share with you ideas and concepts and how they got where they are and the blueprint to follow and just tips and advice. And that's so important to have somebody that's like a virtual mentor in a way, which is what we're trying to create here. So quick format talk. What do we do here on the Facebook Live sessions? Well, the first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about a theme. You can see on the graphic here, 7 tips. My light just fell down. That wasn't cool. You can still see me though, so it didn't fall all the way down. 7 tips to improve your resume. So I'm going to have a theme each week. I'm going to have something we're going to lean into and talk about, a piece of advice that you can walk away from this conversation and say, I can do that. I should do that. Put it into work. And then I'm going to open it up to your questions. I want to open it up to all of you guys. I open up to all of you guys to ask questions, and I'm just going to answer them to the best of my ability right here, right now, live. I also love it when you guys come in and you comment in the group, because look at this. Boom. I can put you up on the screen. So if you're listening and you're watching right now, tell me where you're listening from. Some of you have already done that. Tell me where you're listening from, and I'll keep reiterating that throughout the show and telling people, when you come in, just say where you're from. I want to give you a hello, give you a shout out, like Damien here. Good to see you again, Brian. Good to see you. All right, so let's get on topic. All right. Topic today, I want to focus in on resumes, okay? Because Kevin Wilson. Oh, wait, we got to go back to Kevin. Kevin, great to see you. Brian and the Wiz crew, happy belated birthday. Yes, from Alexandria. Good to see you, Kevin. Yes, yesterday was my birthday. And I was going to bring it out, but I won't. But my kids got me a sweatshirt that has a Santa Sasquatch that says "Believe" under it, and I was going to wear it tonight, but my wife said I shouldn't. Anyway, so that was funny. That's the thing that happens when you have your birthday really close to Christmas. A lot of gifts overlap. So let's talk. So I'm doing the podcast, all right, and I book Don Costante, who is the director, or it might be even VP. Senior director. I might get his label a little bit wrong, but anyway, Don Costante is a senior manager of game entertainment for the Royals. So his job is to do the in-game entertainment and the directing the staff that does all the production that goes in the big boards and around the stadiums and all that kind of stuff. Big job, very important. And you think in some of these interviews, you have an idea of where it's going to go. You think to yourself like, okay, I'm going to ask him about his career and how he got here. And you're going to just kind of flow into a normal conversation, see where it takes you. So I started asking Don a couple questions, and he fires this out at me. Your resume, because I asked him something about hiring, what he looks for, et cetera. And he fires out, your resume has to be the single best document you have ever created. And I'm like, okay, clearly this is something he feels strongly about and he's passionate about. So I'm going to lean into this. And that's what you have to do as an interviewer. You have to kind of feel where things are going and lean into it. I should have worn a sweatshirt. Kevin, maybe I'll go get it later and I'll bring it over. It's over there on the bed, so I can well, in my office, but I can go get it. So I hear this from Don, and he starts talking about how important your resume is. And I'm like, all right, I got to shift gears a little bit as I'm interviewing and think this is something he clearly feels passionate about. So let's lean into this. And he and I went into this long discussion on resumes and what you should do. And I think it was really important. Now, a lot of this is just my own personal experience from hiring and firing and reading a lot of resumes. But, I pull information from all these, the director of talent acquisition for the Philadelphia Eagles, Colleen Scholes. She taught me a lot about what she looks for. Maylin Vu, this person I just interviewed with the Cleveland Indians, also in talent acquisition. I learned some things from her. So I'm pulling all these things together. It's not just my voice. I'm pulling all these things together and trying to give you guys advice that you can put to work. So first thing, customize each resume. I'm staring directly at the camera and trying to emphasize this as much as I can. You cannot have just one resume, set it and forget it. Okay. Every job is different. Every job is going to have different things that they want. And what you need to do is your skills aren't going to change. Like your basic resume is going to have the same components in it. But if you see and read a job description that really heavily emphasizes a certain thing that they want, if you just send in the normal one you send all the time, well, that thing might be bullet point 4. You got to bust that up. You got to move that up and highlight that. You got to maybe build that out a little bit more. Build that theme out. If they're talking like we really want somebody who has experience leading teams, make sure your first bullet point for your job where you led teams explains that. Maybe it shows how you increased or improved or you did something with that. Okay. You really want to customize your resume to the job. It is work. I get it. But if it helps you get the job, that is really important. The second thing that goes, the part that goes along with that is that you need to focus on beating the ATS, okay? The ATS is an applicant tracking system. So let's work through how this happens, how the sausage is made. Let's say I'm hiring. Let's say I work for a team. And I throw out my job requisitions. I post a job on workinsports.com. I start getting in resumes. I get 1,000 resumes. Most teams, organizations, agencies, firms, whatever. I mean, apparel companies, most of them use an applicant tracking system. So it keeps everything in order. But one of the processes within that applicant tracking system is like a scanning system, right? A matching technology in a way. And it goes through all these resumes looking for certain keywords. And they're skills, right? There's certain things that match up to your what they need and what you have. Those two things, okay? Well, if you customize each resume and highlight your skills, you have a better chance at beating this applicant tracking system and being noticed. Why? Okay, so now I'm going historical a little bit here. When ATS, applicant tracking systems, first came out, they looked for keywords like I want people to have leadership skills and have worked with Pro Tools and they know nonlinear editing and Photoshop and they've done sales work, right? Those 5 things. Those are my 5 priorities. Well, they would look for those keywords, pull them out, and give back a match number and say like, oh, this person has 95% of what you're looking for. Well, over time, people started to get savvy to that. So they started keyword stuffing. They just throw keywords in their resumes so they'd hit on a lot of different things. Well, the applicant tracking systems, the computers got smarter, all right? They started looking for contextual clues. What that means is they look where you have the word and then be able to search around it to figure out if it made sense for what they wanted. Yeah. The computers got smarter. So if you take your resume, customize it, and load up on the things that are important to that job that you're applying to, customizing your resume, you look better to the applicant tracking system. You have a better chance at getting past the computer phase and to a human phase where they're going to actually look at your resume and start to make opinions on you. First and most important thing is to beat that applicant tracking system. Okay. All right. Number 2. Lose the objective statement, please. Now, unless there's a caveat. So I want to tell you what I mean by objective statement. 90% of resumes that I would see would have a line like this. I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I got a good one for you. I took a little bit of notes, did a little bit of show prep. Okay. Most of this stuff is just off the top of my head from this little noggin, but I got to write some stuff down too. Okay. A bad example of an objective statement. I'm an experienced marketer with a passion for the NBA, looking for a role that will combine all of my multiple skill sets in print and brand marketing. Do you know why that stinks? 1, I know that you have a passion for the NBA because you wouldn't be applying for my job if you didn't. Okay, so that's a waste. And all of this is focused on you. I'm an experienced marketer with a passion for the NBA, looking for a role that will combine all my multiple skill sets in print and brand marketing. All you focused, okay? Or I get one that says, I'm an experienced marketer looking to combine my passions to work and do this job or something like that. And you're like, yeah, I know. Why would you're applying for this job? Of course I know you're interested in this job. Like it just wasted all this space telling me more about just what's good for you, what makes you happy. I think you throw them out completely, get rid of the objective statement and start getting into the meats of your skill set, right? Get into it. But if you are convinced you need to have that, I'm talking with my hands a lot tonight, so I apologize. Can't help it. If you are convinced that you need that and you're comfortable with that and you want to have an objective statement, you need to focus on them. What are you going to do for this company? So here's a good example. Now, again, I don't like these, but if you're going to do it right. So that's why it says lose the objective statement unless. See it right down wait, here. That was cheesy. Good. Here's a good version. My objective is to build the brand of the New York Knicks in ways that will develop new revenue channels, increase recognition, and expand the international growth of the game of basketball. Now you're focused on what you're going to do for them. And they might read that and say, well, great. That's what you're going to do for me. That's what I need. Okay. So it might work for you. I don't love the objective statement. I think it's a waste of real estate on the paper. But if you're going to do it, make it focused on them, what you are going to do by that for them if they hire you. Okay. Number trace. 1 page. I mean, do I really need to say any more? I guess I do. 1 page. Why? Okay. Because, and if you're new jumping in, thank you for coming, and post in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to just give you a little shout out and say hi. I'm tired of seeing Kevin's comment up on the screen. Just kidding, Kevin. You know I love you. So 1 page. 1 page. Unless if you've been in management and if you've been in the industry for over a decade, you can get away with 2. If you've been on it for under the 10, condense, be concise, 1 page. Somebody looking at your resume wants to see 1 page and get your story. And if you can't condense your experiences into 1 page, try again. Get rid of that objective statement and get to work. Okay. Number 4 is going to sound like really basic, but I'm telling you, people that are in hiring are looking for attention to detail. It doesn't matter what job you're doing. They want to see that you are paying attention to the finer points and the details. Okay. All right. I got to put this up there. Hi, Scott, listening from outside Philly, home of the Super Bowl champions. I also live outside of Philly, but I'm from Boston, so I am a Patriots fan. So I guess I have to still take that one. All right. Hi, Christine, Fort Myers, Florida. Dylan from Michigan. Good to have all you guys here. I appreciate you being here. Let's go back to point number 4. Have a consistent format. Here's what I mean. I see stuff all the time. Tori, Huntsville, Alabama. Roll Tide. I can go with that. I see this way too often. People will bold the job title and then they'll put it italics in another spot. Hi, Christine, Steeler fan. My goodness. What's going on today? Any Dolphin fans out there that just want to rub salt in the wound? Don't say yes, anybody, because I might lose respect for you. Okay, let's get back on point because I get off subject easy. It's fun. That's part of what we're doing here. Consistent format. We're looking for attention to detail. We want to see a consistent flow to how you're describing your jobs and your work experience. So if you put bold your job, the company that you work for, and you put it in 14-point font, do that on the next one too. If you put italics for your actual job title, do that on the next one too. If you do bullet points on one, do that on the next one too. Don't do stars. It sounds stupid, but this is exactly what I see all the time. Sloppiness. I asked Maylin Vu, okay, the Cleveland Indians, assistant director of talent acquisition. She works for the Cleveland Indians hiring people. That's what she does. She hires people all day long. And she tells me that she sees so many spelling errors on resumes and it drives her insane. She will literally get the resume and it will have the little red squiggly line underneath it. Like, hello, if I'm noticing it, why didn't you? If you don't have attention to detail, you're not going to get hired. Focus on the top third of the page. Now, this is one of the main reasons I don't like the objective statements. But again, I gave you an example of a good one and a bad one, so you can decide if you want to use them. But I am telling you. So I was a news director at Fox Sports Northwest, and I hired a lot of people. And I got a lot of resumes, and I would look at a lot of resumes. I would take 20 seconds looking at a resume. I mean, I really would to decide whether I wanted to go further. Like in that 20-second initial window is when I'd learn everything I needed to learn and decide whether I was going to read more or push it away. And here's how I did it. And I know 90% of the people in the industry do it the same way. I look at the name and location up top because I want to know if I was going to have to relocate them or if they were in the local area, because that matters. Okay. And then I'd start to skim down to see who they've worked for. If for me, I mean, we're in the 8th market in the nation. We're in Seattle. I was in Seattle, and we're this big regional network. I'm in an 8th market. I'm a pretty high performing area. I needed people that had other experience at major places. So if I skim through and I see they've worked at ESPN, or they've worked at Fox Sports, another regional, or they worked at a major market, or maybe if they even worked at 2 different mid markets, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. Now I want to see what else they've done. But if they've only interned at a small station, I'm thinking they're probably not ready for this jump. So it wouldn't take me long to do that initial scan. And I'm telling you, everybody knows that your most recent experience is near the top. So if I'm focusing all of the best content that I have near the first top third of the page, that's what people are going to spend their time looking at. That's where they're going to focus and make their quick 20-second determination. Now, what I've emphasized in the past, and I think does work in some scenarios, is that you can almost do a couple of bullet points up at the top that are more general and not tied to a specific job, but that can line you up for your major skill set that may be applied to this particular job. So you can put in there, if you're applying for like a content marketing job, you can put in there that you've authored over 500 articles on different websites, gaining SEO, raising SEO numbers 25%, or page views or numbers or whatever. But you can put some of those bullet points up near the very top before you even get into the employers that you've worked for, because it's almost like that's your headline. It's better than a mission statement because it's actual skills that you have. Focus on the top third, really make sure you nail that part. Now, number 6 is one of the most important points to make. The next 2 are my personal 2 favorites. Hard skills versus soft skills. Okay. I talk about this a lot, but it's important, so I want to nail it. Okay. Soft skills are something you are going to convey in a face-to-face interview. And by soft skills, I mean things like leadership, work ethic, passion, teamwork, all those things that are kind of soft and squishy. Dylan, I will answer questions in a little bit, but I do see your question. I will try to, I will get to that, but let me finish through these last 2 points. Okay. So soft skills are something that's going to happen in your face-to-face interview. You're going to be talking to the person, the hiring manager, and that's when you're going to convey that you're a cultural fit, that you're a leader, that you've got all these teamwork skills, tell stories about how you led a team, those kind of things. Your resume is all about hard skills, because you only get to that interview phase if you've convinced them you have the skills and attributes to do this job, to function in this role. So your resume has to be get away from the squishy and get into the really hard skills, those things that you've done, accomplished, achieved. That's where you really want to focus in your resume, the skills you know, the things you can do, because that's what's going to pass you through the applicant tracking systems. That's what's going to get you noticed. That's what's going to get you past some of these early processes where the applicant tracking system can be hard to get through. You get things screened out in a filtering system. So really nailing those hard skills and the resume is what's going to be looked for and very important. And the final point, and I just realized that I went from number 6 to number 8. That should be a 7, but I don't have time to change it. So, you just laugh a little bit. Metrics. I'll say it again. Metrics. You want to have data points on your resume to show that you accomplished things and you were a change agent. Okay. Our world now is about data. It really is. And resumes follow the same suit. You want to tell a story through your accomplishments. Now, I did this again. I wrote down a lot of examples because people always say to me, well, what do you really mean by metrics? So I wrote down some. These are not from like my resume or like that, but I want to explain this to you. Data cells. Brains literally process numbers faster than words, and they stick. Remember that. So I just wrote down a bunch. Okay. Grew Twitter followers 25%. Now you're going to word these better. I'm just giving you an idea. Okay. Increased campaign reach 32% year over year. Developed a new customer service workflow that increased satisfaction by 12%. Increased customer satisfaction by 12%. Optimized 15 landing pages during the course of my internship, resulting in a 17% lift in organic search traffic. That's a good one. Conducted internal budget audit and discovered 5 key areas of redundant spending, saving $23,000 per year. led website architecture redesign, leading to a 2-second faster load time and a 16.5 decrease in bounce rate. Do you see how these points are made through data? They are more impactful. They are more grounded in truth. They are more believable because they have data supporting them. It shows you as being somebody that can achieve things. This is super, super important. And I want you all to remember this because number 7, metrics. You need to figure out ways to carve your job, what you've done, what you've achieved, turn it into numbers as best you can. Turn it into little number stories, all right? That's what those are. Those sentences that include data points, achievement points. Super, super important because it shows you can do things rather than just talk about them. So those are 7 tips. Now here's okay. Going back to metrics. Whenever you start a new job or an internship or a volunteer event, whatever, whenever you start, try to get some baseline data. Try to figure out where they were in certain things so that then a year later, 6 months later, you can say you grew things 25%. So you can say you made a 13% change. So if you start a new campaign or if you start a new project, try to get some baseline numbers so that then you can have your comparison numbers after the fact, right? Now, you don't want to make it like, hey, everybody, I need to get these numbers because I might be getting a new job later. Hey, you want to make it a little more subtle than that. So go for subtlety. Okay. So those are 7 points that you need to work on your resume in order to master things. Now, this is where we open it up to questions. All of you, your questions. Anything is in bounds. If you want to ask questions about resumes, that is great. If you want to talk about cover letters, that's great. If you want to talk about anything, really, everything is in bounds. For those of you that are new tuning in, I am Brian Clapp. I am the director of content for workinsports.com. I have been the director of content for 5 years. And for the 15 years prior, I worked at CNN Sports Illustrated and Fox Sports Northwest in various production roles as a show producer, as a news director, as an associate producer, as an editor. So I've been in charge of large budgets. I've been in charge of hiring and firing. I've just kicked my camera. You think I'd know better for my production career to not kick the camera. So I've done all of these things, but what makes I think even more credible, the reason I'm here talking to you is because every day, every week on the Work in Sports podcast, I'm interviewing executives from across the nation in college sports, in Major League Baseball, in the MLS, and NBA, and everywhere. Minor leagues, major leagues, agencies, Nike, and talking to them about their needs and what they want. So if you are not subscribed to the Work in Sports podcast, you should be. How dare you not be? And that's why I think I carry some credibility, and that's why I'm spending my time with you here tonight, because I love this interaction. So let's open it up to your questions. Let's see here. I'm going to go with Dylan first because he answered his. He asked his while I was talking, but that's okay. We will forgive. Dylan, how much does having to relocate or being local matter? I've heard in class that it looks good to get experience from a variety of cities, regions, and teams. Okay, so I'm going to answer this 2 different ways. 1, it always looks good to get a myriad of different experiences. And I tell people all the time, when you're interning, you should focus on a large organization and you should focus on a smaller organization. So maybe you do a minor league time, or maybe you do, and then you also do an ESPN, or you do a pro team, because that different experience is going to carry a lot of weight on your resume. Now, why does that matter? Well, at a pro team or a major organization, you might not do as much hands-on work. Right? You might not be able to touch as much. You might not be able to have a ton of cool experiences. You might be labeling tapes a lot of nights, okay? Not doing anything really fancy or exciting, but you're getting to see how a real operation should work, the big machine, right? But then you also want to do a smaller scale, minor league baseball, that kind of thing, or a small agency, because you'll get a different type of experience. You'll get to do a little bit of everything. And I think that's also super important, that balance on your resume. But about relocating, I think you have to go into the situation of working in the sports industry knowing there's a really good chance you will relocate. And you have to be open to that. You have to be willing and open to go where the opportunities are and go after it. I mean, I graduated from the University of Delaware in 1996. And then 2 weeks after graduation, I had moved home. I got a call from CNN in Atlanta. I did a phone interview. I got the job and I started in like a week. I had never been to Atlanta. I didn't care. I went. And then after 7 years in Atlanta, I got recruited to go, I got recruited to go to Fox Sports in Seattle at Fox Sports Northwest, and I want to jump up into more of a management role rather than from an individual contributor role. And we picked up and we went. And I think you have to have that in your mind, that relocation is a major part of the sports industry, and that the ability to do that and the want to do that. And matter of fact, I've even seen people write it in their cover letters that, I realize that I'm not within your local area, but I'm very willing to relocate and excited to be a part of your organization. That all goes a long way. Gary, should every submitted resume have a cover letter? I say yes. Now, here's the deal. Everyone's going to look at your resume, so put a lot of emphasis there. And I'd say 70% of people will look at your cover letter. So I still say put a lot of emphasis there, but submit it. Include it in your portfolio of your presentation portfolio, because it gives you a chance to turn your resume and your hard skills into a bit of a story. And I really love cover letters that would tell a story and let me know a little bit more about you. I really hated cover letters that just reiterated the resume in paragraph form. So you have an opportunity to have and to tell a story about you. And I think that can be really important, because remember, these organizations, they're hiring people. They want to know something about the people they're hiring. So it's important. It really is. Damien, I'm changing careers. How do I connect my skills from a 20-year teaching career in order to be attractive to a collegiate pro team's front office? I tell you, Damien, it's a really good question. And here's the deal. So let's use this example. People will tell me all the time, I spent a lot of time in the military, and how do I turn that into a sports career? And I always tell them, and I'm going to tell you the same thing in a teaching career, is that you have to look into those soft skills that you mastered as being part of being a teacher. The ability to communicate, the ability to manage a lot of people, the ability to stay organized across a lot of different objectives, the ability to work as a team in a school district, to be serving in committees. Those are all really important things that can show you as a strong leader. And now you need to get the skills to marry up with that, right? You need to get those exact skills that the industry is looking for and marry those hard skills with the soft skills. So again, my suggestion is to look through job descriptions that interest you. Now, don't care about where they are or whether or not you'd actually apply to them. Go look at job descriptions and find stuff that interests you and pull those aside and start to really understand what skills they're looking for. And that makes your game plan afterwards. If you go through 10 different job descriptions and they're like, we're looking for a leader who can organize and blah, 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 all those like soft skills I was just talking about, who also knows Photoshop and has done video editing, well, there's your answer, right? You know that then you want to go learn the video editing software that they were talking about, and you want to learn Photoshop. And if you do those things, you can start to marry those skills together. And I'm telling you, you can learn a lot of these skills on YouTube videos. I mean, every bit of audio editing software that I use, I learned how to use on YouTube. And when I started to do our podcast, I watched YouTube videos to figure out what I needed to do from a technology standpoint. So there's so many things you can learn and become accomplished in by easy means that don't have to be expensive. But again, it's that little bit of extra research to figure out what the teams need from a skill set, and then also marrying those skills you already have after being a teacher for 20 years. Remember, sports is a business, okay? It's a business, and so many of the skills line up and match up. And I know I've said this, I'm going to beat this dead horse again, but I have spoken with countless leaders. Actually, I hate saying that. They're not countless because I can count that high. I have spoken with multiple leaders who have told me that they like to hire people from outside the sports industry because they have a different perspective they bring in. I'm not saying they hire everybody from outside the sports industry, but they like to bring in some fresh blood with some different perspectives. You just have to figure out what path you want to follow. And maybe your way into a collegiate or pro team's front office, maybe you want to get into the video room. You want to become a video coordinator for a team, and you become a master of, Synergy, which is the main scouting software they use for the NBA, or you become in Exo's Thunder, which is what they use for the NFL. You become an expert in some of those exact skills, and maybe that's your way to work up. Because I will tell you, I can give you a list. Eric Spoelstra, and I'm just to mention the NBA. You didn't say you want to work in the NBA, but I'm just saying, for example, Eric Spoelstra, Frank Vogel, McDonough. I can think of Sam Presti. A lot of these guys work their way up from the video room up into the front office. It's a good way to get into scouting and other knowledge that way. Glynn, as a 55-year-old nearing retirement in old career, looking for a new career in sports, baseball play-by-play, is it reasonable to apply for internship jobs? I would say in minor league sports, yes. You may want to consider volunteering or job shadowing or other methods of getting yourself in. But I think if you're willing and able and interested in minor league sports, they're looking for people that are passionate and willing to do a lot of different things. And I don't think that you'll run into as many problems in a place like that in minor league sports. And I think you could have a lot of fun. I also think the collegiate baseball leagues. So like I interviewed Jesse Cole with the Savannah Bananas, who owns that team. And he would talk about how he's hiring people and he doesn't care how old they are, just how passionate they are. So if you show that enthusiasm and passion and persistence, I think you can break into that role that you are interested in. I just think the best place to do it is in the minors or in small colleges. A lot of times they don't have, even some of the larger high schools, but a lot of times they don't have, especially minors, minor league hockey, minor league basketball, minor league, all these different smaller leagues. There's opportunities in there. If you do a little bit of digging and try to connect with people on LinkedIn who might be connected to those organizations and try to start a conversation and be willing to volunteer, maybe put in a little extra time later at night or be willing to do other things other than play-by-play to kind of work your way up to that. There's opportunities out there. Okay. Heather, a lot of great questions tonight, guys. Keep them coming. Heather, best advice for my high school son trying to crack into the sports media industry. Okay, so you're in my wheelhouse. So this is been in the sports media for most of my career. It depends what they want to do in the sports media. So if you can reply back with some more specifics, if they want to be on camera as a producer, as a reporter, if they want to work in radio versus TV versus writing for the internet, a little bit different answer for everything. Because the sports media is a pretty broad term. So if I'm guessing, because most people when they're young that say that they want to work in the sports media means they want to be Adam Schefter or they want to be on TV in some form or fashion. And so I'm going to answer the question that way unless I see you give me a more specific. Let me see if you've commented. No. Okay. So if you want to be on camera and work in the sports media, the first most important thing I tell everybody, and this sounds totally counterintuitive, is you have to work on your writing, because every single reporter, on camera person knows how to write. They know how to condense and create thoughts and convey emotion and work conflict and get all those angles in there. And that skill is something that needs to be worked on. So here's my actionable plan for your son. He needs to watch a game that is like the game of the night. So let's say it's Warriors-Lakers on Christmas Day. And he's looking into, wait, I see you responded. I can't see it on my screen. It went away for a second. Hold on. Sports broadcasting. See, I guessed right. Okay. So what do you need? Here's what he needs to do. I want him to pick a game like the Warriors-Lakers. I want him to watch that game. And I want him to then write a 20-second lead-in to that story, as if he was on ESPN and going to be reading something to hook the viewer into watching that. Okay. And I also want him to try to create a post recap. So write an AP style story about what happened in the game. All right. Then once he does that, so this is just an exercise, right? Once he does that, now he goes back and watches ESPN or FS1 or whatever his show is of choice. And he sees how their anchors led into that story. And then go read the AP story or the recap on ESPN.com and see how they told that story. So what he wants to see is, did he see the same things they did when they were watching it? How the pros see the game and the story they told. Now, you're not going to nail it. They're not going to say the exact same thing. Everybody's going to write things differently. But you start to get an idea of that level, that pro level of writing. In addition to that, the best thing you can do is have his webcam and practice. Start doing more on-camera stuff, all right? The more on-camera stuff he can do, the better. Furthermore, What he should be doing is going to his high school and saying, I am willing to set up a live streaming rig and do play-by-play for the high school of the basketball game on the website, and I'll do it for free. All right. That's how he's going to start to build his reel, get some more repetition, or he should start a online radio show with some of his buddies and start to talk about sports, local sports scene. You don't care about viewership. You care about practice. You care about repetition. And then do some reporting at the high school. Go do a after the game stand up with an iPhone. You don't have to have a huge rig or setup anymore, but have him interview somebody after the game, because then he can start to put together his resume reel. He can start to put some stuff that he can show to colleges and universities and sports departments or whatever, so that he can start to continue down this path of practice and getting out there. So there's your advice for your high school son. I could go on and 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 on, but I'm going to go on to more questions. Okay, Aaron, your question is long. I don't know if it'll show up on the screen, but I'm going to try to get to it. So let's see how this works. Woo! Look, I'm melting. All right. I interviewed with a professional organization over the summer for an internship. I didn't get the job. I never heard why I wasn't chosen. I don't know if I wasn't qualified enough, or if I thought I interviewed poorly. Do you think not getting hired the first time reduces your chance of getting hired later on? Okay. By the same organization. So you're saying if I applied to a job with the Cleveland Indians, I didn't get it, and then another job came up, does it hurt my chances to get hired for that one? I'm going to answer a lot of your questions in here. Okay. Okay. Getting hired is hard. You are going to be rejected. You have to separate yourself from that emotional situation. You cannot take it to heart. You cannot let it affect your process. You cannot let it affect that. You're welcome, Heather. You cannot let it affect your process. You cannot let it affect how you go into the next job. What I tell everyone is that teams and organizations do track how many times you apply for jobs. So don't just start applying for everything. Because if you do, they're going to think, well, they're not really interested in this specific job. They just want to work here. And that's not what I'm looking for. They want people that really want this job that they're sharing out there. So my advice to people is I'm not saying you can't apply to 2 different jobs there, but if one is in scouting and another one is in sales, they might be thinking I don't know if this is one person, this doesn't really seem to all match up. So try to stay within your lane and apply for jobs that you are really a good match for. And if you are, it's okay to apply for another job, because you might be a better match for that one, or they might have had an internal. This is what I try to tell people all the time. You don't know what their situation was. Okay, I'm just going to use a team because I keep talking about the Cleveland Indians, because Maylin Vu is coming up on the podcast soon, and she was one of my favorite guests ever. Pretend you interviewed with the Cleveland Indians and you are a perfect match for this job, and they bring you in for an interview, and you nail it. You did great. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you might have never stood a chance to get that job, because they might have had an internal candidate they were hell-bent on promoting from within, because they really wanted to show the rest of their staff, if they kick ass, then they're going to get a promotion. Yes, they have to interview people from the outside, but they might not have ever really thought you had a chance, which sounds unfair. It doesn't sound great, but it's a reality, and that's going to happen sometimes. So you need to not let that affect you too much. And if the next job is something that fits your skill set, they might be thrilled you're applying, because they might have really liked you the last time around, but they already had their eye on somebody else internally they wanted to promote. We don't know these stories. We don't know exactly what goes into their process. So sometimes you just have to, I don't want you to overdo it at a single organization. I don't want you to apply for tons and tons of jobs at their business, because then it's too much. But if you're a fit for the job and you can if you can put your resume in the right format to make them really, you stand out to them again, it might serve as a great benefit that they've been like, oh yeah, she was in here. We really liked her, but she didn't get that job. This is good. I want to see her again. So don't let it get you. Go for it. If I don't have specific metrics to quote, Scott, what do I use in my resume? I tell you what, I don't think I've ever found a job that didn't have some sort of specific metric. I know that's a big challenge, and you're probably going to say to me, well, I did this, so you come up with a metric and tell me that I should. And I'm going to say, no, you need to. But here's my point. There were 6 other points that I gave before. I want you to try to get metrics in there. I want you to try to get data points in there. But if you can't, there's 6 other points that I gave you. ways of matching your resume to the one that you're applying for and what they need. So you're welcome, Aaron. So I think you should dig deep into metrics. Matter of fact, do research online. Say, what metrics are good for my resume? And you're going to come up with like 100 different examples. And you might be like, oh, I never thought of that. That's a good one. I'll pull that in and use it in my resume and cater it to what I've done. I mean, they're out there. You just use the internet. I mean, I steal stuff all the time. Ideas, concepts, I don't really. I'm kidding. Maybe a little bit. Aaron. Oh, wait. I just answered this, I think. If you don't get hired the first time you apply for a job, does that mean less than yeah, I already answered that. Sorry. Sports broadcasting. Heather, thank you. All right. Kevin. Should you keep your resume visible on public job boards such as workinsports.com, since we need to customize a resume for each job opening? Kevin, brilliant. It's a really good question. You're putting me on the spot. So yes, posting them on a job board like Work in Sports, put the best version of that you're most confident in, your most broad version of your resume on a job that really highlights all your skill sets. No mission statement because you can't target it. Good. I answered your question, Aaron. Thank you. No objective statement because you can't target it to them because you don't know who you're applying for. So just your best skills-oriented resume, put it out on a job board like ours, because I'll tell you why. We have features that we're developing, and other sites have features that aren't as good, but are, they're good for them. We have features that we're developing that match up your resume with jobs as they get posted in real time and pings the employer right away to say this person is an 89% match before you've done anything. Okay. And then we're going to ping you back and say, hey, you were an 89% match for this job. Are you interested? Tell the employer. So we're working on features right now that we're hoping to launch in January, but I did not just say that. Maybe later. I don't want to put the pressure. I hope my bosses aren't listening. It's later than that, let's say. But the idea is your resume, your best version of your resume being out there is passively going to connect you with jobs as they come into our job board that has over 10,000 jobs currently and is getting tons more every day. As jobs come in, we're automatically going to hit that against your resume, figure out if you're a decent match for it, tell the employer, and then the employer will say, hey, Kevin, you look like a good match. You interested? And then you'll be able to say, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So having your resume up there on boards like ours, especially ours, very helpful. But if you're actively in the search and you find a job that you're interested on our site and there hasn't been that interaction, you want to then, if you're the one actively engaging in the connection, you want to have a customized resume. So I hope that answers that for you, Kevin. Heather, go Pats. Thank you. Okay, Aaron, that's what I meant. Good. Even us old guys can use the advice shared with the high school student. That was great ideas for practice. Good, Glenn. I'm glad to hear that. I have a lot of ideas for practice, by the way. So I can always talk more about that in another future episode, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there. Or we have a private Facebook group for the Work in Sports podcast, and you can join me over there. I'm in there a lot. And many of you have probably been in there before, which is pretty cool. Okay, Megan. Kevin, you're welcome. What is the benefit of working short-term jobs such as a Super Bowl staff, International Champions Cup, and where is the best place to find those job postings? I love short-term jobs as a supplement to internships because there is great, intense learning and activity that happens. Road races, bike races, golf tournaments, Super Bowls, International Champions Cup. They are short-term windows, 4, 5, 6 days. The Masters is another great one. One of our good friends on the show, Jay Kernan, has volunteered at the Masters for the last 2 years and got incredible experience and connections. Those are great things to have on your resume because, again, as somebody who does a lot of hiring or has done a lot of hiring, I often skim resumes for impressive places that you've worked. I look for Christopher Flynn. Hello, Chris. I'm going to come back to you. Christopher Flynn was a guest on our podcast because he is the sales manager at the Oakland Athletics, the core, which is their entry-level program and is awesome. I'm going to come back to Chris, but I'm going to finish answering this question. So the benefit of working these short-term jobs is because as someone who does hiring, a lot of times I'm skimming through to see your experience based on where you've worked, what kind of scope and reach on the jobs that you have been a part of. And so knowing that you volunteered, worked at the Super Bowl or the International Champions Cup, that says to me that you're willing to go out there and do a lot of things and to get the experience you need. So I think those things are extremely, extremely beneficial. So go for it. And, if let's say you're not in college anymore and you can't do internships, well, volunteer experiences like that are a great way to build up your resume and get more experience that way. Dave Trailer, good to have you here again. Checking in. Joys of working late. Ready to learn. I'm here for you, brother. Biggest benefit is definitely, hey, Trevor. Biggest benefit is definitely it being a huge networking opportunity as well as a great resume booster for someone who hasn't had as much internship experience. I just read that really fast. Perfect. Hey, Kevin. Thanks, man. Chris Flynn. One of my favorite guests on the Working Sports podcast. He's a hardworking man with the Oakland Athletics. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, even if you don't work in the Oakland area, and even if you aren't interested in baseball, you should listen to it because their program, the core, which they call it, which I think is a cool name. And it's an acronym. So CORE stands for things, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. So sorry, Chris. Maybe he'll publish up there what it does. But they have this program that is this. Okay, so a lot of people, 55% of the jobs in the sports industry are in sales, right? And inside sales is normally the first step within a major pro organization or minor league or whatever. But a lot of these programs people come into and they have like a 9-month window where that's all they do. They work in inside sales and they try to master that. Well, Chris looked at it and his team, and not just Chris, but Chris and the team of the Oakland Athletics looked at it and said, we want to build up our entry-level staff in a more broad sense. So we're going to teach this like an intensive training session. So they're going to do sales, but they're also going to go and interact with other departments in the organization and have time in the other departments of the organization, try to build whole employees who know what they really want and may figure out sales isn't for me, but I would like to go into communications or I would like to go into operations because they got that experience within the Oakland Athletics, and then they can find opportunities for them within the industry, either with the A's or with another team. And I just loved that program because I thought it was a much broader look at how this world should work. You don't know exactly what you want to do when you first get into the industry. And so being exposed to a lot of different things can be helpful. And again, that goes to the volunteer ideas, that goes to internships, any of that other kind of stuff. So Chris, always love to give you a shout out. Aaron, is it too early to start applying for full-time jobs if I don't graduate until May? My general window that I tell people is that when I was hiring, I had like a 2-month window where I expected 2 to 3 month window when I expected to fill the role. So that time period from when I knew that I had the role and put it out there into the public world, and put it out there in the public. Sorry. I should have gotten a water. That was a loud hiccup. I knew that when I first started to have a job, put it out there in public, it would take me probably 2 to 3 months of getting through resumes, doing phone interviews, doing, background checks, all that kind of thing until I actually hired the role. So I'd say backdate yourself from May. If you're in that 2 to 3 month window, you're probably okay. Where can I have my resume reviewed and critiqued? If you go to our website, we work with a company called Top Resume, and there's on the right-hand side of our site. If you go to the blog, actually, I might have to look again where it's located, but if you go to our blog, workinsports.com/blog, I'm pretty sure on the right-hand side, there's a advertisement for a company we work with. It's not really an advertisement. It's a company we work with called Top Resume, and they will actually review and critique your resume for free. So that's pretty cool. And, they are very good. I did not talk to them before I gave any of my ideas out, though, so we might have totally different opinions on this. And Christopher Flynn, an expert in the industry, never too early in his opinion. So Aaron, there you go. I think you're in that window too. I agree with Chris. Peter, I'm going to show you how this works. Peter, good to have you here. Ex-pro minor league player with the San Diego Padres. Why would you ever leave San Diego? But here's the deal. I need your question to be a little bit shorter because watch this. Boom. So I don't have time to read that right now and answer your question. So I am going to ask you to condense, and then I'll come back to it. All right. This is Tori. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Tori. Does prior military service help or hurt my chances of getting hired in the sports field? It helps. Okay. Many reasons. Number one, I know a lot of organizations, including the MLB Network, that have programs for military veterans. They have hiring programs. They have internship programs. They have shadowing programs. They have hiring programs. I also think prior military experience, and I'm telling you, we have so many people in our Work in Sports podcast group, on our private group for people that are fans of the podcast, which all of you can join. We have so many people in there that are ex-military and that are networking with one another, and they all are saying the same things. I'm asking them for advice too on some of this stuff because I'm not ex-military. My dad was military. My dad was a Marine who fought in Vietnam, but I was not. So I asked them, like, what's your experience been like? But before even asking that, what I would tell anyone with military experience is that you have gained real world skills that translate: leadership, teamwork, management, organization, motivation, managing groups of people, soldiers, whatever it may be. You need to leverage that into you being okay. So the sports industry, so often when we're hiring, we get afraid that we're hiring somebody who's just a big fan, and they're going to come in and be giddy and cheering and excited that Shaquille O'Neal just walked in and wanted to get his autograph. And that's something we fear. I'm telling you, I feared this every day hiring in the sports media and bringing in interns and freelancers, was that I'd have Sean Alexander in the studio and somebody would be getting all geeked out that he was there, and it would embarrass and make it a hard work environment for us. The reason I bring that up is because if I was hiring somebody with military experience, a lot of that worry would be dispelled, because I know that there is discipline and order and a process and a maturity to that person. And you know what? Sometimes we need the big boys and the big girls in the room that can be organized and disciplined and dependable. And all of those things you need to leverage as part of your former military service into your job search. I think those are really important attributes, and I think they will serve you well. So yes, that helps. Trevor, as someone who graduated recently and has a full-time gig, what time is it? 8:27. Okay, we're going to do like one or two more, and then I'm going to call it a night. My plan was always to make these like a half an hour, and every time I've gone over an hour. As someone who graduated recently and has a full-time gig in the field, what is the best way to be a resource to those in college and high school? I eventually want to be in the management track and want to have experience mentoring. Dude, that's awesome. The best way to be a resource to those in college and high school is, I would say, I started writing on different blogs, sharing my experience. I started speaking at different high schools. I started speaking at some colleges, and it started small and grew from there. I think if you can be a thought leader on places like LinkedIn or on Facebook or lots of different places, start to be a thought leader, start to get your thoughts out there. People will start to notice, and then they'll start to ask you to be a part of their conversation. That's what always happened for me. I mean, I've written 700 articles maybe. So, I mean, I get out there and publish them. So you build a little bit of a brand that way. But I would also say, if you went and talked at the career center for any local college and said, hey, I've been working in the sports industry and I really want to give back. If there's any classes I can help out with, they're going to love that. So go and talk to people and offer to be of assistance. And I think you'll see that will, that'll work out pretty well for you. I think that's a really cool question. Hi, Peter. Broadcasting combo with sales. I am vice president of a direct marketing firm for automotive industry with a staff of outside reps. Yep. Just tell me let me know what your question is though, Peter, and I'll see what I can help with. Tori, you're welcome. Christopher, I love that he's in here chatting it up too. Aaron and whoever else. As a hiring manager, my talent pipeline goes until June 2022. That's a bit of a peek behind the curtain. Wow. So he's like recruiting that far out, or has his kind of lineup of jobs that he knows he has to fill, and is probably tracking people that he's met. So he might even, I'm guessing, I'm putting words in his mouth now, but Chris is probably out there at different career fairs and things like that. He's probably meeting people who might be a junior, and then he goes back and he puts their resume on file and says, all right, this might be somebody to fill my role down the line. I mean, he's always looking, because these roles are always, you're always looking for talented people to make your organization better. Peter, forget me, I screwed it up. No, I'm not forgetting you. I'm just trying to help because I want to help. That's what I'm here for. Oh, good. Kevin. CORE, I said it earlier. CORE stands for Culture, Opportunity, Results, and Education. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that, because I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. Dave. All right. I think that I'm going to go with this being the last question. Okay. Yes. Dave, we're going to finish up with you. Oh, wait. Megan just asked one too. Let me see. Let me go to Dave's question here. I have one resume for digital marketing branding roles, and second for promotions event marketing roles. Is this a good approach? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, Dave, you came in late. That was absolutely the first point I made, is that you customize your resume for each job you're applying for. So if you have, and because you want to load those skills that you have that match that job, what they need. When a hiring manager posts a job opening, they are putting in there exactly what they hope to get and what they want, their dream list. So if you can start to make your resume really front loaded on the top to really drive into those things that they are looking for, and then, your next resume, it's a different job. They're looking for different things. And if you have those skills, you want to make sure those are highlighted and focused. So having multiple versions of your resume is absolutely the right play. That was quick, so I'll go at Megan. I'll see if I can do this fast. In your opinion, what is the best approach to a cover letter for someone who has minimal sports experience and does not have a sports specific degree? Cover letters should tell a good story about you. Do not just reiterate in paragraph form your resume. That's boring. Nobody wants to read your resume twice, and one has a couple more words added to it. String it all together. Tell a story. Tell me something about you. Tell me something about a sports experience that framed your passion. Tell me something about a work experience that would put you in a crisis moment where you had to battle through an event to get to the other side, or where you had to lead a team through a challenge. Tell me something that's going to interest me about you and make me think you will fit in with my organization. That's how you approach a cover letter. All right. I didn't bring my water, so if my voice is starting to get loud or craggly, it's probably a sign that I should sign off. Thank you, everybody. This was Facebook Live version episode, I guess you'd say, episode 3. These are a lot of fun for me. I'm going to try to do them every Thursday. I think next Thursday is a day after Christmas, though, so I might not do that one. But we'll be back in January trying to do these and answer all your questions and try to just have a little fun in this engagement. So thank you for being here as always, and I appreciate all the questions. They're great. Please subscribe to the Work in Sports podcast. Every week I have guests like Christopher Flynn. Awesome guy, really knows the industry. I have expert guests who are sharing more and more of their expertise and their knowledge that can help you out so much. So keep tuning into these Facebook Lives, subscribe to the Work in Sports podcast, and come check out workinsports.com, because we are the #1 job board for the sports industry. We're going to make your life a lot easier to find that sports job that you've been waiting for. Thanks, everybody. Tori, we're going to end on this. Boom. Thanks, Tori. Have a good night, everybody.